What's up, everybody? Welcome to Comic Book Nation's The Pull List, where we talk about all things comics all the time. I am Matt Aguilar, and I am here with an awesome crew of Kofi Outlaw and Jamie Lovett. Welcome back to the show. What's up, guys?
You're coming in soft for Twitter. We got to come in hard. What up, Twitter X? We are live for the first time, Comic Book Twitter X, and we are talking comics because it's Wednesday. I feel like that's more of the new Twitter kind of persona.
Yeah, I don't like new Twitter, so so I'm good with it. I'm good with not going to that. But awesome, I love all my Twitter people.
We're live on this wonderful platform we do not like. Hello,
we are.
everybody.
No. I just don't subscribe to new Twitter. I just like the Twitter I remember. But no, it's awesome. Welcome, guys. We're gonna be talking a bunch of comics from across the board, both obviously the big two, and across a number of other companies. We try and cover everything here. So let's get rolling. We're going to start with Marvel because we've got Jamie Lovett here, who, for those who have followed the site for a long time or any number of years, Jamie is one of our biggest X-Men fans, and we tend to love X-Men on Comic Book Nation, but we don't get to talk about it very much. So I saw an opportunity, and we're going to talk about original X-Men #1. One of the stories from, oh God, I don't even know how long ago it was, but essentially when the original X-Men kind of came back, and it was one of Beast's many flaws and mistakes that he's made over the last few years. But this one actually turned out to be okay because he brought the original team back, and we got some really great stories from that. And then they were kind of sent back into the past and had their memories kind of removed. But this kind of revisits that and that original team for a little bit of a, multiversal mishmash, Phoenix, Jean Grey, big story.
You're selling that about as well as any X-Men storyline I've ever heard.
I mean, here's the thing. It is kind of everything. It's kind of the kitchen sink. I mean, we got, and spoilers, by the way, coming for these books, but I mean, we have, Xavier dying, we have multiple genes, we have Onslaught. It's a little bit of a mix and a mishmash of X-Men history here. Starting with Jamie, what do you think about their return, bringing this kind of concept back into the fold, and also what it sets up?
I spent a lot of time with this book because I wrote a review for the site, and I didn't love it. I mean, there's partly for the reasons you just listed. There's a lot going on here, and it's like there's so much going on here that like none of it means anything. Like we've done so many revisits with the original 5 X-Men for whatever reason. It's like people forgot nobody liked them when they first showed up. And, we've done X-Men First Class and X-Men Season 1 and all new X-Men. And you come back at this point, and you're like, what can another adventure with these characters say that's new and different? And it turns out nothing. It says nothing new or different. It uses the same premise as all new X-Men, right? Somebody comes and takes the original X-Men out of their time so that they can go talk some sense into their older selves. The big difference here is it jumps on the multiverse bandwagon. That's such a big deal right now. And the Phoenix from Universe A comes and takes the original X-Men from Universe B and sends them to Universe C to fix something.
Comics, everyone!
It's such a convoluted setup that the first 8 pages of this comic book is just Phoenix explaining it to the main characters. It's so much, and it's like 20 pages in, we end up getting some sort of really lip servicey, like, oh, our younger selves would be ashamed of ourselves kind of theme tacked onto it all. But it all just feels like a really kind of half-baked backdoor pilot for this other series that's coming out that really doesn't have anything to do with these X-Men. They just did it because it's the anniversary and they have to put out so many X-Men comics if they're going to keep their market share.
So that was the thing I wanted to touch
really
on.
Cynical, but that's what it feels like.
But that's the thing I wanted to touch on, because it does, once you get to the end, and that kind of leads to our larger question here, this feels like a bait and switch, because by the last, 2 pages, really, hey, here's this other series we're building, and it was I understand from one aspect, because okay, we do get there and we build up this villain that we're gonna go hunt, but then again, it's like, why didn't you just start with this series? Like, why go through all of this to get there? I mean, Kofi, did you kind of feel that way? How'd you feel about this issue overall?
I actually just stumbled onto this one early before I knew we were reviewing it. I was just kind of like, oh, they're doing another Young X-Men thing. And I opened this book. And well, the first thing I'll say is like what the appeal is to doing these original X-Men stories is it takes things back to a simpler time, a simpler place, which they start off with when they're just the X-Men fighting Plant Man and, you know, that silliness of all that. But you quickly lose that simplicity, as Jamie pointed out, when this Phoenix appears and it's just like exposition. And I feel like I'm kind of torn because on the one hand, I feel like this was a story that really should have been stretched out over like a limited series, even if it was like 3 or 4 books of them getting this message, getting to this other thing, having to actually have deeper conflicts with the other alternate X-Men selves, and then kind of having this reveal of a villain and then going from there. But then again, I didn't want to spend that much time with them either. So I'm also kind of like happy. My favorite part of this book is that it wraps this up as a one-shot, as just like a giant one-shot revisit to these characters. Because I'm like, Jamie, I don't need another one of these. We've done this multiple times. So that was my curiosity. It was morbid. It was like, what the hell are we doing with another one of these? That's why I popped the book open. And so I was just like flipping through it. And then I started seeing Phoenix and all this. And I was like, whoa, back up. And I like went back to the front and started reading. And like, yeah, it is dense. I didn't expect, because again, I never like try to preview how long a comic is. I'm not one of those people who picks up a book, flips to see how many pages are on the last page. And then it's like, oh, I am, or I'm not. Like if it gets me interested, I just pick it up and just kind of dive into it. So I didn't know how long I'd be reading this book when I started. And I didn't know how deep in like X-Men lore we were going. But yeah, it is dense as hell. And I'm glad Janelle's not here because we would have made her brain bleed because she's already like on the fence with all this X-Men stuff. And like, yeah, you got to know like pretty much a whole good portion of 70s to 2000s X-Men to kind of get all the beats of this book. And I was like, man, I don't know how many people are out there, but it does its job as a backdoor pilot in a weird way because the concepts that it's launching, I'm interested in. Like, I'm interested in Age of Apocalypse Wolverine. I'm interested in a weird Wolverine team from the multiverse. And I do like Onslaught, and like anything with Onslaught, as long as it doesn't get too crazy and complicated where he doesn't have a body and I got to follow all that, like, I'm good with. But like, yeah, this was a weird book, and that's the only way I can put it. Like, it's not at all what you think when you're going to pop open the cover of this book. There's a lot of like, oh, like kind of shock and awe moments, but you got to climb through a lot of dense crap to get there. And it is not the most interesting stuff. So
I mean, look at the. Sorry, I was just going to say, look at the art too. Like when you think you mentioned that this is supposed to be a simpler time, harkening back to that Silver Age. Who thinks that and then goes, Greg Land? That's the guy for that job. That simple, you know, youthful teenage 60s vibe. That's true. Greg Land, sure.
It is true. They don't mesh. But I do love me some Greg Land artwork.
No, this could have been like, no, the artwork's not bad, but this felt like it could have been Alan Moore's X-Men. You know what I mean? Like it could be.
With it. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. It doesn't really mesh because they're having, especially in the simpler times spot in that opening, which I enjoyed a lot actually. Like I enjoyed the commentary on, oh man, what life was like when we were fighting Plant Man and whatever. Like that was fun. I enjoyed it. And I'm with Kofi. I am kind of mixed on this because there's actually elements and parts I really enjoyed, but it's because I'm an X-Men nerd. It's because I understood certain things and like, oh, cool, they're referencing that. Oh, that's cool, whatever. But like, I would never have assigned this. By the way, on Friday's show, like if Janelle was like, because I'm like, no, this is exactly what you stay away from. This is not new reader friendly at all. It is not and it's kind of supposed to be a launch pad because they're launching this other series into it. So if someone comes into this, they're going to be lost. I mean, there's just so much they pack in, but there is parts I enjoyed. I am a sucker for when original team meets future selves and stuff. I'm a sucker for that storyline. They've done it numerous times and I fall for it every time. I love that story. I also am a sucker. As soon as I saw Age of Apocalypse Wolverine, I was in. It didn't really matter who the other 4 were. I don't care. You had me there and I'm good. And so I am excited. I was kind of bummed that it wasn't an Exiles style team and it's just Logan's. I was like, okay,
yeah, well, I had questions about that because like Onslaught is this massively powerful psychic energy. What is the thinking that, like, we'll get 6 different colors of that one guy with claws and he'll kill the psychic god? Like, I'm sure they'll have 8 pages explaining that in the first issue of Weapon X-Men, but right now I'm very confused about how
And Jean's even like, "Oh, you're not enough," and I'm like, "Well, what are the other 4 gonna do? They all have the same powers."
That's just the same person 6 times. I don't think that's going to be as effective as you think.
You just need you need the very, 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 very best at what they do. You know,
the best.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, but yeah, it's a lot of ideas thrown together from like X-Men hodgepodge, and not in a kind of funny new twist, Chip Zdarsky kind of way, but like legit Chip Zdarsky kind of way. But in the, like Jamie said, it's also, I was not a fan of this multiverse. I was like, man, are we like going to reverse engineer this like comics inspired multiverse craziness into live action mainstream? Now we're going back to pump it back into comics too. Like everybody in every book I feel like I'm reading is just like hopping Earths these days. And it's just like, now I got to remember a whole set of numbers for Earths and stuff. And I'm just like, whether it's DC or Marvel, and I'm like, look, guys, this timeline in reality sucks, but we all got to start dealing with it in 2024. So it's like, let's get every comics into like, let's fix reality type stuff and stop trying to shunt ourselves off to some other timeline because this one sucks. It's like, you know, we just got to deal with what is, because this is getting out of control. Every time I look up, it's just another multiverse story.
That was exactly my problem with like Jean in this story. There's a scene where she's like, I can't believe that I did these horrible things in this one timeline. But it's like, yes, but you were also sent on this mission by like a saintly version of yourself who fixed their universe. Like that's the thing about the multiverse. Literally everything happened, which just makes everything feel a little more pointless because, you know, you hang around in the multiverse long enough, you see every variation.
Right.
And that's kind of the weakness of the multiverse is it undercuts everything by being like, yes, but it also happened the other way in this universe next door.
And that's why people know it's clear who watched Rick and Morty and who didn't. Like that's the whole kind of cynical underlying theme of Rick and Morty is that in a multiverse, when you have this concept, nothing matters. Like nothing has any weight. And that's Rick's whole thing that, you know, that blows the other characters' minds at different times in the show. It's just like, no, it's really, there's infinite versions of you. So like, why should I love you? Why should I do this? And after a while that there's a truth to that. Like, yeah, it stops mattering.
And that kind of robbed, like, you know, Marvel's, you know, one of Marvel's bigger things used to be what ifs. And you don't, and they still kind of bring those back and we have a show and everything, but you don't need that when you have a multiverse. Cause literally that's what that is. It's like, it kind of robbed the what ifs used to be like, oh man, can you imagine that? And now it's like, yeah, it's happened somewhere. Like it's just out there. We haven't touched
once a week. We imagine that.
So let's move to something that is completely different in tone and not in a multiverse. And this is Animal Pound #1. For me, much anticipated Tom King and Peter Gross kind of take on the you know, Orwell story, the famous Animal Farm, kind of a modernization tweaking for this kind of current day. This is, you know, going into it, I kind of felt like I knew what to expect, and it's delivered exactly what I expected. This is a, you know, dialogue heavy, you know, move through. I mean, there's a lot of kind of dealing with, you know, societal themes and captivity and like the thing is, I'm already very I love pets, I love dogs, I love cats. Like I have a very, you know, kind of open heart for animals anyway. So then you put it into this context, and like there are some lines of dialogue in here, you know, that yes, I might have heard before. You hear those themes, but like put into this context and the way those lines are delivered, I don't know, man. It just made me, you know, feel some stuff. This was, you know, this is kind of heavy for me through certain moments, especially early on. It sets the tone very early, and you know, mimicking some of the, or not even mimicking, paralleling some of the things from that original story. So, you know, did this for you? Does this get you intrigued going forward into the series? Do you think this was you know, King has even said himself, right? He's like, I feel like I'm, you know, I think he said something along the lines of, you know, I don't know why I'm doing this. Like, I feel like I'm stupid for even trying this, but you know, it's just one of those things I want to try. How did you feel about this? Let's start with Kofi.
LFMAO. That's how I felt about it. I was reading it. I'm a person who's like, I've had hamsters, dogs, cats, fish, a lot of pets growing up. But like, I'm always kind of weirded out by human beings' association with animals versus
Mm.
other human beings. Like, I'm that really, it really does bother me constantly how we can have this like capacity for empathy for animals, but like different kinds of human beings were like, no way,
Sure.
I hate that, and I hate that so much, and I am always the monster when I kind of like bring that up because people are like, what, you hate dogs, you hate cats? I'm like, no, I love both. I just love people more. Like, I'm sorry, like, and I don't think like pet ownership is as thrilling for them as it is for you. I think it's a lot of psychological projection, and this one kind of takes that cynical nature, my cynical worldview, and makes it into a comic, which I love, and I thank Tom King for. Yeah, because I mean, there are things that, like, over time, and this is, of course, not. This is a very limited view. Like, there are pets that I've had that I've seen who are more than happy with their life with a family and everything. So let's not go off the deep end here. But in overall, the world of animals and our relationship to animals, it's as weird as everything else with human beings in modern times. There's just so much selective things we think about versus don't think about, views that we have, and we just put together our own world images based on this, right? It's like the food that we eat. I'm still obsessed with the TikTok ketchup thing, right? Where they held up a ketchup thing from America and one from the UK, and the UK one had 6 ingredients, and the one from America had like 15, and one of them was a subheading ingredient that was actually for 20 other chemicals. And it's just like, but we choose not to do that. We just keep eating the ketchup, like, and I just keep going with that. So this kind of challenges you in that way. I think Tom King's statement is on point about being maybe a little stupid for trying this, because I don't know who you're making happy with this. Like, I don't think you make pet fans happy. I don't think pet hate or animal haters are going to have the empathy for any of these characters. So I don't know. But in terms of dialogue, it is a pretty, if in nothing else, it's a pretty funny, kind of darkly satirical kind of take on like revolution stories and social revolution and all of that through the eyes of a pound. And so in that sense, I get the joke, and I actually enjoyed the joke and the dialogue. But I was just like, ooh, man, we are in hot button territory with this one. And but I was a fan for him going for it. As a writer, I never mind if you fall on your face. Just swing for something different, swing for something crazy. And if you fall
Jamie,
short,
how did you feel?
I had kind of mixed feelings about this one. I mean, I like seeing Peter Gross doing some art here because he is a phenomenal storyteller. I felt like there's a lot of narration here, and it's a little overbearing at times. This reminded me of obviously Animal Farm, but also like with all the oration, it reminded me of that Dream of a Thousand Cats issue of the Sandman, with the cat telling everyone to dream of a new world, and they wake up and it's there. But this is more grounded, which makes some of it makes me raise some questions about certain things, like them writing in English on the wall at the end. Like, I get that he was like, oh, we should all learn to read or write. But even if you accept that they want to do that, how did that happen? Is there like a pound library that they got to go to look at some books and learn how to read? I'm very... And the disconnect there are a lot of stories where I just take that and be like, okay, it's a fairy tale, but this one's presented as so realistic that it's hard for me to wrap my head around that particular bit. But on like this one, like Animal Farm, it has a lot of allegory in it about like class struggle, and the people controlling us are just turning two different versions of oppressed people against each other so that they can't turn on their oppressors, that kind of thing. It's got a slightly cynical undercurrent to it, because like immediately they're like, oh, this is going to end badly. Which is basically like, yeah, revolution doesn't end well, which, take that for what you will. It's interesting, and I'll probably end up checking out like the next issue, but I'm not 100% sold yet. There are certain things that are like, I don't know where you're going with this or how that works, but I'm curious at least.
Yeah, that gets me too. I'm curious about where things go. It was a little, the narration was a lot. Like, there was just probably a little too much for me because it would kind of take me out of some of the moments of where I'm just trying to like I'm invested. I'm already in. It didn't take very long. It was Lucky's original story that got me in. And so, those the kind of touchstone moments of when they're talking about their kids being pulled from them and hey, you're taken to the disposal, and hey, if someone forgets to there was one like that whole sequence about they're talking about, oh, you pet them and the doors, like all about the doors, that whole sequence. And then just like, and they struggle to remember to fill your bowl, and all they want in return is eternal love. Like some of those moments got me, right? Because like, I've never not a perfect pet owner, right? So like it automatically has me, oh man, like I made my dog wait like for an hour or two. God, I'm horrible. Like, but like, so some of those things, and that's what it's trying to prompt in some respects as well. So you're supposed to react to these animals as people in a way, you know what I mean? So for that, it really won me over, and I'm curious to see where it goes. I just do feel like maybe it can be better balanced in that regard, because I'm already, some of those moments I was already in, and then it would be like, oh, there's another thing of dialogue I need to read, and it kind of takes me out. So hopefully that balance is found going forward, but I very much appreciated it, and I'm like Kofi, I like the big swings. Take the swings. So in this case, let's move to, we got a couple of different rapid fire reviews that I want to make sure we get to, because this was a huge week. This literally could have been like 5 main books. Wonder Woman #4. Me and Kofi already talked a little bit about this in Slack. Kofi, I know this one hit you. For me, this series has been phenomenal. What did you think of this one?
Yeah, it got me in the dad bone. I don't do it well anymore with anything that involves like child mortality, and this one was like a very beautiful story. I think, for all the flack after that risky first issue that he put out, like kind of keeping Wonder Woman out of it for a lot of it, I think Tom King has done a very good job of both visually depicting and kind of narratively conveying what makes Wonder Woman unique and different as a superhero, in the same way that he did is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, but for very different reasons and ways. Like this issue was a very good showcase of Wonder Woman's love and compassion, and how far she'll go to use her power and all that stuff for something as simple as giving a child one great day of what could be his last. And it was juxtaposed nicely. I love the juxtapositions in this series of how there is the Sovereign telling the story, but us seeing these different things. And this was a great one. Like, while everybody's freaking out and preparing all this violence and hate and all this stuff, Wonder Woman's unbothered and just trying to focus on showing love to this one unfortunate soul. So it was great. I love how it's building while telling these isolated stories in each issue. And so another hit for me. This is like one of my favorite series every time it comes out every month.
Yeah, it's really hard to not actually make this the main book every single week it comes out, because I'm that this issue was hit a lot of in the same way, a lot of emotional undertones for me that resonate, and I just love how he's in those first interviews we did with him, he very much talked about how he wanted to portray her, and to me he's lived up to every single one of those, if not surpassed them. Jamie, have you had a chance to check out Wonder Woman or no?
I haven't. I was one of those people who kind of wasn't hooked by that first issue. I've heard good things since then. I just haven't had a chance to go back and catch up since.
Gotcha.
It's gonna be one hell of a graphic novel.
Yeah, when it's collected, it'll be fantastic. Moving into another of DC's big gun, Superman #9. This one, man, I've been here just like waiting for Maryland to get some shine, and we finally start to move there. Also, Bruno from Nightwing steps in on the artwork on this, and it's fantastic. But I just love how many things this series juggles, how many threads it constantly juggles, and it does it so well. And you've got movement on Lex and his family, and you have movement on Lois and Clark, and then you have movement on Graft and Moonlight, and now that ending, like there's just so many things always going on in this books, but it's woven together so well. I just adore I adore this series, and it just keeps knocking it out of the park for me. Kofi, I know you're also a big fan.
Oh yeah, yeah, real big fan. Ending of this, I did not see coming, and I'm kind of like, what the hell, right now. But I trust Williamson's not let us down. I mean, this is as close as I've ever felt of having that Superman the animated series kind of adapted into like a comic of its own without trying to be the animated series. But this is doing it. There's a whole world here, whole cast of characters. It's self-contained. Metropolis for the first time is the most interesting place to be for me in DC. It's not Gotham or any of these other places. It's Metropolis right here, and how they're kind of fleshing out the lore and these two villains that they're not rushing through. Like, I like it. I just got to see what the hell is going on now and how this all ties to Marilyn Moonlight, which could be an interesting reveal. So I'm in.
Jamie, you've been keeping up with a book that I've been insanely curious about. G.I. Joe American Hero. I'm very much kind of all in on this new, kind of skybound universe with Transformers and G.I. Joe, but this is one I haven't been able to I didn't catch the last issue. What have you been thinking of this?
This is good. So this isn't part of the Energon universe. This continues.
Okay.
This continues the original G.I. Joe story from those original Marvel comics that then Larry Hama continued writing at IDW, and now Skybound has brought him back to keep it going. That's why it's at issue 302 now. I'm not super familiar with that whole run of G.I. Joe. I jumped on this with Skybound, but it's really good. Part of that is because Chris Mooneyham's art is just so dramatic that it just sucks you right in. And it's incredible that Larry Hama is able to do things like, oh, there's a bunch of zombie people at a casino at an island. And also Cobra is apparently a pyramid scheme. And all this stuff, all this really goofy over the top stuff. And then in the middle, there's a largely silent, like military funeral at Arlington Cemetery. And it's all treated with the same like gravity. And that makes it all feel like it works together, that it's cohesive. It's a confidence in storytelling that really works and makes this a lot of fun to read.
And you're also digging the Star Trek books, right?
Yeah, those books have been really, really good since they kind of relaunched under editor Heather Antos, who previously was at Star Wars for Marvel and kind of came and decided, well, let's do what worked there with Star Trek. So there's this line of Star Trek books. The flagship one is Star Trek, which I think is issue 15 this week. It's a kind of calm before the storm issue where they're about to have to fight like a whole like dinosaurs, basically alien dinosaurs. But you get these quiet moments between characters. In this issue, it's Harry Kim and Tom Paris, and then Scotty and Beverly Crusher. And the writers, Colin Kelly and Jackson Lanzig, are just really keyed into these characters and do some great character work that anyone who's been a fan of any of that next generation era of Star Trek is really going to enjoy if they check this out.
Awesome. Kofi, you gonna send us out on a cool note?
Yeah. So before we get done talking comics today, it is my job to inform you that as we are recording this and dropping it on the live streams, we have released the first of our Comic Book 2023 Golden Issue Award winners. And if you've been keeping up with this is our self-styled award show that's getting bigger every year. And so far, we have released our picks for the best comic writer, for the best graphic novel, best limited comic series, and best ongoing comic series. And our picks might surprise some of you. We also have kind of best artist coming up, and I know who won that. And we have a lot more. So be sure to go to Comicbook.com to our comics tab, where you can find out each one of our winners and see if you agree, and go back over our list of nominees and see if you feel like anybody got snubbed, and then you can let us know about it. But as we do the pool list every week, these are our categories. These are the ones that are most important to this show. And we want to know what you guys think of our picks.
All right. So, yeah, and we will talk more golden issues next week as well, and throughout the week as more winners are revealed, and we've got plenty to say. But until next time, thank you for watching and listening to the Pull List. You can check out this every single Wednesday on New Comic Book Day. Kofi, Jamie, where can they find you?
I'm at Kofi Outlaw.
And I'm at Jamie Lovett.
And I am at Matt Aguilar CB. See you later.